In this episode of Houndsman XP podcast, I travel to Arizona to take America's heroes on a bear hunt. And this was all made possible by an organization called Sportsmen For Heroes. We have Sonny Tapia, the founder of this organization, on the podcast this week, along with two of our heroes. Sergeant Major Robert Glass is going to be in the interview. He gives a very interesting talk about the price of freedom and how that freedom is paid for, how our warriors struggle with the war effort, both in theater and especially when they get back home. We also have Chris Davis, who is an Army veteran himself. He's a Gold Star family member. You'll hear his story about losing his brother in the war for freedom in the Middle East. So we've got a pretty emotional podcast for you. It's going to be very different than other podcasts we've done, but I think it's important that we talk about these things and we see what the real price of freedom is here for our freedoms to hunt, to bear firearms, to have this great thing in the United States called conservation. We're going to talk about conservation issues. Robert gives us some insight on his experiences in Africa and how hunting is so much different. Wildlife conservation is so much different in the United States than anywhere else in the world. Chris gives us an insight into his impressions on hound hunting, and he and Robert both describe what impact hound sports are having on their lives. This is definitely an opportunity and should be a wake-up call for houndsmen to come off the mountain, get involved, and put our message out there. Let the world know who we are and what we're doing. And we can put things on social media. We can post videos on social media and things that are controversial. But there is nothing controversial about taking America's heroes out there and giving them an opportunity to enjoy the great outdoors and a hunting experience. It plays well with the veterans, and it is probably the single most important thing we can be doing with our passions as houndsmen, is paying this back to America's heroes. I want to also mention our sponsor, W Hunting Supply, and encourage you to go to the Join the Fight page. So if you're operating on the new app, then you can find the link on that app by opening up the web page. But you can also go to www.dusupply.com, and then if you're operating on a mobile device, click on the menu button, the three little lines up in the right hand corner, click on Join the Fight, and purchase one of our new Houndsman XP logo leather patch caps. It's stylish. It's something that you're going to want to have here in a couple weeks when we announce our 50,000 download celebration, because we're going to have a giveaway on that, and you're going to need that in order to participate. So it's going to be exclusive to our most serious supporters. But visit dusupply.com. Make sure that you're using them to equip yourself. You know, their tech support, their customer service, everything that DU is about is going to be beneficial for you as a houndsman. So if you're going there to buy a cap, make sure you round that order up. Buy a DU shirt. If you need a T5 collar or a TT15, then round it up with a cap. So we would appreciate your support, and we love bringing you this podcast every week. But freedom isn't free, and that's what this podcast is all about. So sit back and enjoy a great conversation from 9,500 feet right out of bear camp, and you're going to hear some hunting stories, but you're also going to hear some human stories about the struggles that our veterans face, not only in theaters of war, but also when they get back home, and hear the amazing story from our veterans, but also from our host, Sonny Tapia, as he talks about putting his passions and his emotions, making an emotional investment, I guess we could say, into these veterans that are coming back. So hope you enjoy this podcast. It was fun to make it, but it was an honor to be in camp with these great men. Remember, freedom isn't free. What are you willing to do to secure that freedom for the future of hound sports? Welcome to the Houndsman XP podcast. We are coming at you live from 9,300 feet in an undisclosed location in Arizona. And this is a pretty awesome experience we're having up here in Arizona, chasing some black bear this week. And it's my honor to introduce Sonny Tapia from Sportsmen For Heroes and a couple of veterans that we are hosting, that actually Sonny is hosting for this hunt. So it's been an awesome experience, Sonny. I can't tell you enough how honored I am for you to reach out to me to come out here and participate in this hunt. So, Sonny, how you doing today?
Thank you. I appreciate you having me on, and I really appreciate you coming all the way from Indiana to mess around with us. You know, it really means the world to us, and I know it means the world to these vets.
Yeah. So we got two veterans with us today too, and we'll just go around the room here and kind of check in. And Robert, you want to start out?
Yeah, I'm Robert Glass. I'm a retired sergeant major. I did 23 years in the Army. It's been about 18 years in 5th Group, 3 years in the 3rd Special Forces Group. I think total combat time, probably around 6 years. People talk about how many missions and deployments they've been on. I'd be honest with you, I quit counting them in numbers. I just count them in years. And that was actually time I spent in combat, but time I spent overseas. You know, out of 23 years in military, I probably spent 18 years somewhere in freaking, downrange in some Arabic-speaking land. That's the language that the military taught me, and we were hunting bad guys, training good guys, and trying to hold up democracy and freedom for our country.
So when you say Special Forces, Robert, you're actually – give us a little more specifics on.
So when people hear the word Special Forces, news they get it wrong all the time. But if you hear the term Special Forces, you're actually talking about an Army Green Beret. And that's the only Special Forces unit in the world. And when you talk about Special Operations, you could be talking about a Navy SEAL. You could be talking about a person in the recon forces in the Marines, or they have a Special Operations in the Marine. And different Special Operations, even the Rangers, they could be considered Special Operations. But when you hear Special Forces, first thing that come to your mind, they're Green Berets. And just think about the movie Rambo. I have a lot of predecessors that that's what they look like, man. These are a bunch of badass freaking guys, it's protecting your rights and protecting your freedom.
Yeah. And Chris?
Well, that's a tough one to follow. So,
should I have introduced you first?
So I'm Chris Davis. I was in the Army for 8.5 years. 10th Mountain Division. Did a deployment to Iraq with them. A little place called Triangle of Death. Beautiful place, shitty people. But so then left there, went to USASOC for a while, which is the Special Operations Command. Worked in the support for a while with them. And then went to Long Range Surveillance on Bragg and 82nd Airborne Division, and got out back in 2012. Or no, 2014 is when I got out.
Yeah, but you're still serving.
Yeah, so, a bit, I guess. So, I'm still, kind of spreading my knowledge and helping the fight forward with our diplomats, training special agents right now. But I'm very fortunate to be where I'm at. I got lucky. Every time somebody says, oh, yeah, you're doing great, I'm like, man, I got lucky. I probably couldn't pull it off again.
Yeah. And, Robert, you're still serving, too.
Yeah, I still serve. I work for an agency. It's under Department of Defense. It's called Defense Counterintelligence Security Agency. And it was known as DSS. We just kind of changed our name. But our day-to-day activity is do counterintelligence for the clear defense contractor. So anybody that makes anything special, unique, classified, from weapon systems to satellites in the sky, we run cases on people that's trying to steal our technology, and do harm to our soldiers. So our end goal by doing this job, I feel like this is the way I can contribute to the back to our country and really and truly serve our my brothers in arms, because we try to protect the technology that we field on the battlefield, make sure that it gets there, that it's uncompromised. So when our adversaries, they pull out a sword, our guys pull out a lifesaver, and we always got that one-up technology, and that's kind of where I'm at right now. My body's wore out, my mind's getting there, but I'm still a little, still wanting to contribute to the world and do my thing.
Yeah, so I'll just kind of lay this out for our listeners because we've got to paint a visual image here. But, Robert says you've actually got your grandson in camp with us.
Right, I brought my grandson out. I'm originally from Alabama. I live here in Arizona now. My family still lives back there. But he's 14 years old, and, he's hunted deer before but never experienced, other opportunities. And I just wanted to come and spend time with him. Really was the reason I was here. It's more about time. Rather than the experience, but the experience, help him grow. And he's learning things here. And even got to shoot a little gun a while ago and kind of surprised some people that he could actually shoot, and even at his age, he's already downed a few deer, and he's been hunting for a while and there in the South. Totally different hunting from up here in the, in Arizona. And this area is unfamiliar for me to hunt. It's a new thing for me. To be honest with you, I hunted when I was young. I stopped hunting for years. I came back from Afghanistan, and, we'd been downrange. Things were hot and heavy, and I decided to go hunt. And I went out, and I, down a little whitetail, and I walked up on it, and then it was a nice buck and everything, but I had no emotional feeling about it. I just kind of felt sad for the animal, and I kind of felt like, shit, I got to drag this thing out of the woods, too. To be honest with you, and there was no emotion there, and I tell you the truth, I felt like I was emotionally bankrupt.
Yeah.
And, I'd seen so many friends get killed, seen so many people die, been on the receiving and the giving end of all that. And I felt like, just killing an animal, just for, meat or a trophy, it just didn't feel right in my heart at that time. So I quit hunting for about 10, 12 years. And then I kind of started getting that desire back, but I lived down here in Arizona. I really didn't know how to do it. There's a big draw process, and it's a little bit difficult to hunt big game. And I got a friend got in touch with me. He's like, hey, I can get you a tag to go hunt in javelina through this Sportsmen For Heroes. I hadn't heard of him before. And he said, just call this guy here. So I called Sonny, and he totally took care of me. He hooked me up. Here's the tag. He sent a guy all the way up from where he was located in Springerville all the way down to Phoenix to bring me a tag. We got it transferred to me. I met some of his friends / guides down at Benson in Tucson, right below Tucson there. They took me out, and we killed a javelina. And I'll be honest with you, it was the first time that I sat behind a pair of binos since I've been in Afghanistan.
Yeah.
When I was in Afghanistan, I'm searching for people. I'm searching the bases of trees, houses. I'm looking on the rooftops. I'm looking in the windows in the top. And I was sitting out in the open at this point, which I never done before. I'm sitting out there, and I'm glassing for animals, and I'm looking for these javelina, which I'd only seen in freaking pictures on TV before. I'd never even seen one in person. And I still caught myself. I'm looking at the bases of, trees and different types. I'm looking for people. I'm not even looking for a freaking animal. And the guys that's out there with me, they're guiding me. And like, oh, look, there's a deer over there. I don't see the freaking deer. I'm still looking for people, It took me a little while to zero in and say, this is actually cool. I'm sitting out here. Nobody's shooting at me. I'm looking through a pair of binos. Snow was melting off the ground. It was freaking gorgeous. It was beautiful. Great experience. Didn't really care if I killed a javelina or not. And at the end, we did shoot a javelina. And, but what I learned was in the military, it's really hard to connect with people, to be honest with you. If you hadn't been in the service before and I met you on the street, we'd probably have a quick conversation. I'd move along my way because I feel pretty diplomatic. I'm in the civilian sector now, and I work with civilians, but I still have a hard time talking to them about things that I'm interested in. And I'm interested in hunting, and now when I meet these guys, we have something to talk about. We share our experiences, and in this hunt out here that we're doing right now, we have people who came from Montana, from West Virginia, Indiana, and they drove here on their own dime. They brought their own dogs, and they come here for a few of us veterans to give us the opportunity to experience this hunt. And I'll be honest with you, we haven't got we got on a few bear so far, but we haven't killed one yet. If we don't kill one, I don't really care. It's a great opportunity, And I met some good friends. I'm sure I could probably drive all the way to the East Coast now. I could stop at every one of them's house, and I wouldn't have to have a hotel anywhere along the way.
That's right.
And they would put me up and take care of me, And all this has been afforded the opportunity through Sportsmen For Heroes, through Sonny there. And he's actually kind of rekindled a fire in my heart that I haven't had in probably 15 years.
Yeah. Well, I want to take it back to Sonny, because none of this would be going on without you, Sonny. I want to talk about your foundation, what you're doing for, what's your mission for Sportsmen For Heroes? What do you hope to accomplish with this foundation? And just take it away.
Well, I'll tell you first how it all evolved. When I was a young kid, my father wanted me to go into the military, and I wanted to be a hunting guide my whole life. That was my passion. That was something that I was cut out to do, and I believe that the good Lord, put me on the search for that. Well, anyways, when I graduated high school, I didn't go to the military. I became a professional hunting guide at 18, and I was living a dream. And I really didn't know what the price of freedom really was at that time. I knew that we lived in a country that was free, but I really didn't know why. And I was guilty for that. And I think there's a lot of people out there that don't really know what the price is. Well, anyways,
hang on to that thought, because when you're talking about the freedoms, you're going to hear some language in this podcast that somebody might be uncomfortable with, but we're sitting amongst warriors here, and the price that they paid for that freedom of speech, we're just gonna have to deal with some of that. I'll do my best to edit what I can, but these guys are talking to you from the heart, and they're taking their time to share their experience with your foundation right here. But if you get offended by a couple small words here, then you might want to turn this one off. But we'll do our best to edit that out. So when we're talking about freedom of speech is part of that, and when you're dealing with warriors, it's not a Disneyland world out there. So you go ahead and let her rip, Sonny.
So I remember when 9/11 came, I was on an elk hunt, and my client had just harvested the bull. And we got back to the truck, and I turned on the radio, and I heard the commotion of what happened at 9/11.
Where were you?
I was in the Gila of New Mexico. We were elk hunting. And
seems like everybody remembers exactly where they were that day. I mean, I can recall that too. We were canine training that day. Had a couple guys lined up for training partners to lay tracks and do different stuff, and I was on US 50 right there, westbound, just outside of Versailles, and you get this little blip, a plane hit the World Trade Center, and then, I mean, it went from that to us canking the whole mission for canine training that day, and heading to the sheriff's department and watching the news. So.
Right, and that client had made a kind of a bad shot on that bull, so I wanted to give him some time, and we went back after he'd found out about listened to that on the radio. We went back to the lodge, and everybody was glued to the TV, and I remember watching over and over the clips of the planes hitting there and people running, and I told the client that I was going to go back and get that bull that we had wounded, and gave him enough time. And he was so shaken up he didn't want to go. And I said, I'll go myself. So I went and took care of this bull, and it gave me a lot of time to think about what was really going on. It was kind of eerie. There's no airplanes in the sky, nothing flying, nothing. It was just weird.
I was actually out. I coon hunted a couple nights. And where I live, we live right outside of Cincinnati, and so we're right in that flight pattern of Cincinnati CVG, Greater Cincinnati Airport. Man, that's a couple peaceful nights there,
right,
where you can hear dogs, and
right.
So I get it, yeah.
So I got that bull back, and I was married at the time, and I had a 4-year-old son, and I was really, really pissed and upset about all that happened. And so I came home, and I told my wife that I was going to join the military, and I was going to go fight for our country. And
how old were you at the time, Sonny? You remember?
I was probably 30, 26 or 30, somewhere around there. I don't know exactly. Anyways.
No time for math.
Right.
Now.
Well, I ain't any good at it anyways.
Yeah.
I flunked that one. That's why I became a hunting guide. Well, anyways, like any wife, kind of concerned that she was going to have a husband that wasn't going to come back or be a father to their kid. And it really made me think about it and talk, and that kind of made me make a decision on not going. And I kept going on through life and living the dream of being a professional outfitter or a hunting guide. And at that time, actually, I became an outfitter. I started my guide service in 2001. And then after that, I started donating my time to an organization called Hunt of a Lifetime.
Yep. And
it's an organization that caters to terminally ill kids. And you have these kids for like five days, and you're spending time every day with them, and you rekindle this relationship, and you know that any day that those young lives could be gone. And I took 5 or 6 of them, and not one of them were alive, and they were all anywhere from 8 to 18. Mm-hmm. And it was really tough on me. I kind of get emotional when it comes to that stuff because that stuff really tears at my heart. But anyways, so I kind of switched gears and I started donating to organizations that cater to veterans. And the first group I had was a veteran that he was wounded. He was a double amputee, and I'd never been around that before, And we were on a bear hunt, and this guy was one of the toughest guys you ever come across. He was like walking around on his knees. And if you picture going over these logs and all that stuff, he didn't want none of us to help him. And we're like, well, let us help you. He's like, nope, I'll do it myself.
This is tough country.
Tough country,
Yeah,
and there's, a lot of blowdowns. And so we were out one day, and the dogs rigged, and we turned out, and we had bear treed. And I got as close as I could, and we got 400 yards from it. But, in this kind of country, 400 yards when you're on your knees is
That's
forever, right? So I told him that I was going to hightail it to the tree, and he had one of his battle buddies with him that was on the hunt also. And I had some other guides helping him while I made sure that this bear didn't come out of the tree. So I stayed there, and it was probably one of the top 5 biggest bears I've ever treated in my life.
Yeah.
And, I'm in awe at this bear, and his buddy comes up, and he's looking at it. He's like, that's awesome. And then about 45 minutes later, here comes this vet, and he come over this log and come around this tree. And when he come around that tree, he looked up at that bear, and I guarantee you there was about 8 of us, and not one of us had a dry eye. Yeah. And from that moment on, I knew that I couldn't not donate my time to veterans, because it's, for me, it's something that, because I never served, I felt guilty. So this kind of gives me a little bit of peace of mind and makes it feel like, I actually did something for the vets. And I love it. It's my passion, man.
Yeah.
It really is, and
well, nobody can argue that. I mean, I'm sitting here first time in your bear camp here with these veterans, and how many volunteers have you got working in this camp, volunteering their time?
Man, I bet you there's 20 of us for sure, huh?
And then people that aren't even here that have contributed.
All right, yeah, and I mean, all of us, it's a 501(c), and it works off of donations. What's cool about this 501(c), there's not a dime that goes to one of us. I don't make a paycheck. There's no one in the organization that makes a paycheck, gets paid. Everything goes. The only money that the donations go to is for tags, if a guy can't afford it, or meals, gas, and all the supplies that it takes to run these things, and everything else is straight into the foundation.
I mean, if somebody starves to death in this camp, then they're not very motivated to eat, because I mean, there's food here. You've got cooks here. I went into town with you one day. We bought a tag for one of the vets.
Right.
And yeah, it's a pretty amazing thing you've got going on. We got 2 guys here that served in the Army, and the sergeant major. I'm sure he knows something about logistics. What's your opinion?
I tell you the truth, I look here, I'm kind of wowed by first we show up, tents are set up, and I'm a guy, I don't want anything for nothing, I'm still able-bodied. I mean, I move slow, I limp around, I wear a brace on my freaking ankle on my
I'm going
leg,
to tell you, though, to paint this visual image, if you met Robert, I mean, this guy.
He's a house.
Yeah, he is. He's got Chris, you've known him since, how old were you when you got to know Robert?
I've known Rob all my life, man. He's been around forever. I can't remember a time without him, honestly.
Yeah. So,
him and my dad, best buds growing up, coming up in the SF community. And I remember I just looked at them as giants, man.
He still is a giant.
Yeah, for sure.
Yes, I tell you about Chris's father. Him and I served together in Special Forces. We went through the Q course together, and Chris was 3 years old when we first met. And he was a baby. He's got a brother who's no longer with us who also died, who died in Iraq. Big blow to probably one of my biggest losses, to be honest with you, to see my best friend, still my best friend, lose one of his sons in war, and I remember one time I came back. As soon as I heard that, it happened, I freaking flew home. I went straight to the house, and his wife, we're all family. We grew up together. His wife's like, yeah, Buck hadn't talked to anybody, and that's his dad, as Buck says. He hadn't talked to anybody, let nobody in the house. So I just walk in, open the door. I was, hey, let's get on our motorcycles. We all rode bikes. Chris, even at the time, had a freaking crotch rocket. We ride American-made shit, but, it takes a little while. He rides a Harley now. It takes him a little while to come around. I said, something, man? I said, I don't think Steven would want us to freaking sit around here and mourn his death. I said, let's freaking go celebrating his life. So we jumped on our motorcycles. We went to Myrtle Beach.
From where?
And we were in Fort Bragg, North Carolina.
Okay.
And so a few of us, we jumped on our bikes. We hauled ass down to Myrtle Beach, got the freaking best hotel room we could find, and we celebrated this young man's life for a little while, for a couple of days. Yeah. And then we all gathered up and we went to Arlington, and we put him in the ground with the fucking best honors and the best people you could ever imagine, and that's the way people should be honored when they give their life for our country, and the damn thing, crazy it is, the kid was died on the 4th of July. At the time he died, Chris, his brother, was in in Iraq with him. His mother was in Iraq as an EMT, as a contractor. The poor kid's grandfather was in Iraq. He had retired from I think American Airlines or one airlines as a mechanic, but he was working over there as a generator mechanic. And so the poor kid gets killed, and he's got his brother, his mother, and his grandfather all serving in fucking Iraq. Excuse my language, but how much more patriotic can a family be?
Right.
Right.
And just amazing. They put them all on the airplane, flew them into Dover, and brought his body back. And most people don't know. I'm kind of talking. I don't even know if they really want to know. But they brought the son back to the TMC where his mother actually worked, and she knew he was coming and knew he had passed. And she was actually one who cleaned him up, after the incident. He took a grenade to the head. It wasn't like he was, got hurt and, squashed between two vehicles in some convoy or some shit, He was out there doing what men are supposed to do, serving his country. And so it means a lot to me. I've lost a lot of good friends, but that one always sticks out because it was my best friend's son, The rest of us, for me, we're all doing our job, but he was kind of like a kid of my own. I watched him grow up, and when you watch someone that you care so much about and their family suffer, it's pretty traumatic, you know. And it's I don't know if Chris wanted me to talk about this,
You guys have talked about it before?
Yeah. No, I always love people to talk about him, and I mean that's the way to keep his memory alive, right? He died a warrior. I'm doomed to die in a car accident or an old man. So
right.
I mean, he'll be forever remembered a warrior.
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt.
That's another big thing that I love about Sportsmen For Heroes, that when these warriors come back to civilian life, they've seen a lot of things that none of us have ever seen, and they have nothing in common with us because we've never seen that. Anyway, so I've talked to a lot of them, and the first question that I ask a lot of them whenever I meet them, and we're one-on-one, I ask them, I says, why? Because I always want to know this, because I kind of want to have a science to this, I guess. I'm like, why a lot of veterans turn to suicide. And it's crazy that most of them say the same reason why. So they tell me that when they were in the service, they had a purpose. They knew what they were going to do from day to day, every day. And from the time they woke up to the time they went to bed, they knew what they were going to do, and it was a purpose. And when they get out of military and they come back to civilian life, they have no purpose no more. They feel so they're alone, and a lot of them say, people think I'm weird and I'm different, so they don't have many friends. Mm-hmm. And so whenever you're alone, you got a lot of time to think.
Yeah.
And you're always thinking of the bad things instead of the good things. And so with Sportsmen For Heroes, I've met a lot of guys that have been kind of in that rut. And Sportsmen For Heroes is not only for hunting. We do whitewater rafting, we do cattle drives, we do ATV jamborees and stuff like that, because not everybody's into hunting.
Right.
And that's what makes this world go round. But Sportsmen For Heroes wants to cater to every one of them in every aspect there is. You want to come out here and you want to go for shooting photography, look at animals, come on.
Yeah.
We don't have to hunt. And it may bring these guys out here and having them around, people that care about them. It gives them a sense of purpose again, and they feel like they're wanted, and it's just crazy how they light back up.
Well, I want to keep that thought going, and I want to come back to that because I want to talk about the changes that you've seen in some of the veterans that you brought here from the time they hit camp to when they leave.
Okay.
But one of the things that I want to go back to is understanding the things that veterans coming back from a theater. I can recall coming back. Well, I'll just take this right back to training completely changed when Desert Storm started. At the time there hadn't been any major conflict. You're just going through the motions. You're hitting your marks on your training, different things like that. And then when it was going to war, then the training completely changed. You could see everything was ramped up and different things. I said I was 21, I guess, at that time. And, I said my goodbyes when we went into our training queue there and our sequence for training. Mom, Dad, I'm leaving, and then the company commander decides he's going to give us a 3-day liberty at Christmas, after I'd been training to go to war for a month, just a month. And Mom still says that's the weirdest time she's ever spent with me in her life. They all came down to North Carolina, and we went to Topsail Beach, and I was really disconnected. So even with people that I'd known my whole life, I was looking at them and thinking, I have nothing in common with you right now. Have you experienced that, Chris?
Yeah, so coming home from Iraq was a little different for me. My deployment was cut short. I was there for a year, but then we ended up getting extended. I remember when that happened, too. That was a kick in the pants, man. And so we got extended for 15 months, but it didn't even matter for me. And so one day, company commander came in and told me what happened to my brother, and I was out of the country within 24 hours. So coming home was a little different for me, dealing with the loss of my brother, trying to figure out, just trying to convince myself what was the right thing to do, right?
Yeah.
I could go one of two ways. I could feel sorry for myself and woe is me, or I could live a life for two people and do the best I can every day. And and that's where I'm at now. But it took a while to convince myself of that. Had some hard times, but second deployment, coming home from Afghanistan, it wasn't too hard. I came home, lived with my parents for a while. They lived right off post, so it wasn't too big of a deal. My mom would do my laundry, call up my roommates. It was pretty awesome. I was a young NCO, lived with my parents, so it's pretty sweet. But coming home and recognizing that life goes on without you, and then try to step back in and insert yourself into that. It could be tough, and that's what I kind of, I think was the hardest part was, recognizing that, although you're gone, life back home doesn't get on pause. It's moving forward without you. Your kid's growing, your dog's growing.
Yeah.
Everybody's changing. Your friends are moving, and so you're coming home to a different world, and it can get a little tough.
I know when I came home from Desert Storm, they threw a party for me, and Mom and Dad did all this, and my parents stayed up every night. That's when CNN was, they took us right into the theater, everybody back here, and
Geraldo Rivero,
yeah.
and Wolf or whatever, it's on Fox there now. They were downrange right there with us. That's right.
They were embedded right in with the troops and stuff. So they spent nights, trying to catch every bit of information they could, and then when we got home, they threw this big welcome home party, and they invited everybody I knew, and just like Robert said, it was like I was there, but I wasn't there. Mom still talks, she still reminded me of that. So, Robert, you touched on that.
Yeah, it's you come back. I'll be honest with you. For me, I'm from a small town, Alabama. I was just a little country boy, joined the military at 17 years old, and just looking for a different experience, and wasn't looking for a career, wasn't looking to do anything, special. And it was a fit for me. I like the discipline, I like the structure of it. And I'll be honest with you, even now when I don't tell people that I was, even in the Army most of the time, I don't really get that close to people, but, sometimes I tell people and they try to make a little bit of a big deal, and it's kind of embarrassing for me because I feel like I'm just a normal person that was in a different situation, and I walk away, and Sonny talked on the PTSD, man. It's freaking real world. It's out there. It's killing people on a daily basis. I think I'm one of the lucky ones because, in a way, it's lucky to be kind of emotionally bankrupt where you don't have a whole lot of feelings for stuff, And I hate to go to funerals. You can't hardly drag me to a funeral. It's got to be a close relative, or, it's hard to get me to a funeral because it brings back some things that I don't want to feel, you know. And so I stay away from that type of stuff. And but I am one of those guys. I'm kind of hard soul, but I know the guys that have and it makes me sad. Me and Chris was talking about today a little bit, about, how hard it is on our family, especially my wife. When you're not really an emotional person, and something happens emotional in your family, and she's all emotional about it, and you have no freaking emotions about someone passing, and it's a disservice to her. I'll be honest, it's a disservice to her. Because it should be something that I feel bad about, something I should be crying with her about, something we should be sharing feelings about. And I didn't realize I was that freaking bad off, to be honest with you. And one day, me and my wife, we were at the freaking racetrack. We got a couple race cars, and we were letting down one of them easy up canopies. Those things are kind of complicated. And she caught her hand in it, and it's pinching the crap out of her hand. And she's hollering for me to, get it off her hand. Her hand's hung in this thing. And I reach over and I get it, and I finally get it, and I start chewing her ass about having her hand in this spot, and instead of saying, I'm sorry, let me see your hand, let me check, because her hand was cut, and stuff. But my natural reaction from being in the military, when someone gets hurt, it would send me into a rage because normally they're hurt by enemy.
Right.
And I got to react, I have to direct troops, I have to direct fire, I have to react to this. I don't have time to sit down and kneel down with this person who may be shot and dying, who may be dead, say my prayers and hold their hands. I didn't have that time. We're maneuvering, we're moving.
I hope my wife doesn't listen to this podcast.
Yeah.
Maybe she needs to listen to it.
And oh my God, man, I feel so sorry sometimes for my wife because I am so unemotional about things. And, being retired sergeant major, things got to be my way most of the time. And I went through, a few divorces because I am that way. Typical military thing, when my last few years in the military, I was divorced, and I said I never would get married again while I was in the military because, I'll be honest with you, I didn't want to put another woman through what our families have to go through. With her husband getting on a plane, getting a phone call, getting on a plane in the middle of the night, going somewhere. And I'll be honest, in the early days, there was no freaking sat phones. There was no email.
Yeah.
And sometimes I didn't communicate for 3 months. And all she knew, I left in the middle of the night. And they'd be watching the news because there'd be shit happening on the news, and she knew where I was at, because it's fired up. And it's like the dogs are howling. News is going off. She knew I was there, and shit was hot and heavy. She's waiting for that freaking chaplain to show up.
Yeah.
Because that's what they do when we're gone, man. They're waiting for the chaplain to show up. And, and I said I never would put, another woman through that, and I didn't. I got divorced the last time. I stayed single until I got out of the military, and thank God I found this lovely woman that I'm married to now. And she puts up with me. She tolerates, all the baggage that I brought from that into our marriage. And,
got a little background noise from a big diesel firing up right there.
Yeah, we got some camp movement going on out there.
You got it. Part of it lies at 9,500 feet.
Yeah.
It's moving out.
Yeah, and, I think it's important that our listeners understand, the picture that goes around what you guys have done and paint that picture. But we need to lighten it up a little bit,
Yeah, this is a little serious,
We got to,
We got to make fun of Sonny
Yeah,
or something,
military wasn't all bad, man. I tell you,
I love it.
people make a big deal about it.
But don't tell a story about Germany.
No,
Okay.
no. But man, people make a big deal and woes me sometimes. I mean, 'cause it's easy to woes me. But man, I got to hang out with my best friends.
Yeah.
And dude, I knew those dudes would lay down their lives for me.
Yeah.
And you'll never. And just like Rob was saying, you're not gonna find that outside. But man, like me and my buddies, we still meet up, we still hang out. I mean, we're still good friends. And some of the best times I've ever had was in Afghanistan. So.
I remember stuff that happened from Desert Storm, and I remember the feelings that it took me a long time to reconnect with my own brothers. I got 5 brothers, 5 brothers and a sister, and I felt closer to the guys I served with. But I'll tell you this: we say all this, but everybody I've talked to in this camp, you talk to Pixie and Hicks and the guys who've been here volunteering. Every one of them has told me that you don't make friends with Sonny Tapia, you become family.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like, me and Robert, he went on that javelina hunt with Devin, and I wasn't there because I was on a guided elk hunt. He called me up, and he actually wrote me a letter, and it was pretty awesome. And I'm into Harleys, and so was he.
Yeah.
And we met up on a Harley ride, and he got to meet my friends and girlfriend, and we got to hang out. And I mean, I feel that we're pretty good buddies.
Yep.
I can actually call Robert now and say, hey man, I need to borrow your motor home. He'll probably let me do it.
Yeah.
Hint.
We got some dogs firing up in the background. That's the most action we've seen all day.
Yeah, they must be hungry. It must be. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I would. Speaking of friends thing though, in the military, you do meet a lot of guys. It's really good friends. You meet some guys that's not such good friends. And the one thing's kind of deceiving about the military, everybody wears the same uniform, you train the same way and everything, but we're all still different. And it took me a long time to kind of figure that out. And I don't connect very well with people that hadn't served. And it's not that I don't think that they're worthy of my friendship. It's just that I don't have that thing in common, with them. And 23 years, big part of my life. And then when I met Sonny out here, he's actually the only person I ever drive sometimes down the road. I'm like, let me just call this guy out of the blue and freaking screw with him because he's an alpha male like me. And we can throw shit back and forth at each other, and it is strange, and he introduced me some freaking awesome people that I feel like that's, will probably be in my life, be part of my life for the rest of it, out here.
Yep.
And people I can actually go and hang out with because I'm not a big going to hanging out with people, it's just not who I am. I'd rather have, I tell people, and it is true, I say I have less than 10 friends, but if I say somebody's a friend, it's probably really less than 5, to be honest with you. And that's the guy I can call in the middle of the night, share my darkest secrets with, or if I say I need you to come here and help me do something, that dude will not ask what it is. He'll be on the plane to come there to help me.
He'll help you hide the bodies.
Yeah, and he'll ask, I'll be like, dude, bring a freaking shovel and get on the first flight smoking this way, and make sure you're hydrated because we're going to be digging all night. And he'll be like, all right, pick me up in the airport, or where do I need to be? Give me a grid coordinates in the Army. That's why give me a grid, I'll be there,
Right.
And but it is hard, but I have met that person. And, like I say, Sonny's like the first person that I met, and it's not that I feel like he, done me a favor, because he didn't make me feel like he was doing me a favor. He gave me an opportunity I hadn't had in a long time, and kind of rekindled this hunting thing, and I like gadgets and shit, like all of us in the military. I went out and bought a bunch of new hunting gear and stuff, and didn't bring none of it out here because I didn't want to get dirty. How stupid is that? I think, and I didn't want to be the rookie walking around in bear camp with a bunch of camouflage on, because the guys he sent out hunt with me, and I'm all cameled up, and these guys walk around in jeans, and it's just another day at the park because they know how to hunt.
You forgot the hair gel.
Yeah.
The hair gel. Yeah, that's a must.
I didn't want to release the secret. It's like the locations of the hunt and the hair gel. That's the secret. I ain't gonna tell you what brand it is. But I don't have any hair, so I don't use it, but I might rub it on my damn clothes. I don't know.
let's talk about hounds. That's what this is all about, Sonny.
Right.
What do you talk about the hunts we've been doing the last couple of days, and what our expectations are here?
The hound community in hunting community in general, but mostly hunting, or hounds. Like I told your buddies from Montana, come out and hang out with some vets and run some dogs, and they drove 16 hours to come out here, and with no questions asked, because we have the passion of dogs. And he had told me that in Idaho that the season had just closed, so it was a perfect timing for him. And as being a houndsman, that's all you want to do is get your dogs on another bear or lion or coon or whatever it might be, because no matter how many you have treed or no matter how many times you have ran them, there's never enough time. And it is awesome. I got Kelvin from Res Hounds. He'll be here tonight, and he's another, military man like you guys. And
you better bring my dog.
You better bring your dog. And all you got to do is ask a houndsman, hey, we got to go catch some bears for some veterans or whoever, and they're all about it, And that's what I love about it. I remember when I first got into it, my buddy had been a houndsman for a long time, and this guy is a really good lion hunter, and I used to go with him all the time, and I always just think, man, I want to do that. I want to get my own dogs, and I want to experience that myself. And I tried it a couple times, and then I got right back out of it because there's a lot of dang work, and because.
Somebody asked me the other day, so I think it was Jason, one of your guys. He's like, so what's your annual cost on keeping hounds? I mean, how do you answer that question?
Right.
You've got emotional investment, you've got your time, you've got, all the regular vet bills, you've got feed, you've got, just gas, everything that goes into it. So, being a houndsman's a lifestyle.
Right. And I'll be honest with you, Chris, I'm not really a dog lover,
we talked about this.
Like I told you, I'm not a guy that's going to have a lap dog in my house, and I'm not emotional connected to dogs, but I have some hounds that are just my buddies, and I got one in particular that I got at 8 weeks old from Res Hounds. His name is Chance, and this guy's my buddy.
Yeah.
And he gets a real treatment out of all the hounds that I've gotten. It's just. Say a man's best friend, and I look at him straight in the eye, and I'll talk to him, and he looks at me, and I know he's listening to me, and then I walk away. I'm like, I wonder what he thought.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
It's one of those things. If you want to see who loves you more, lock your wife and your dog in your trunk and open it in a half hour and see which one's happy to see you.
Right.
Right. Then you'll know who your friends are.
True.
So you are a dog guy. You tried to tell me that, and I picked up on that, and I said, you're a dog guy.
Right. And what's cool about this whole thing, is it's, I can't do this alone, and it's awesome that, that you drove out from Indiana, and Larry come out from Montana, and Res Hounds is coming out from the reservation, and my buddies came out from West Virginia. And it just, everybody thinks that the hunting industry or world is that kill, kill, kill. But you know what? Being a houndsman or even being a hunter in general is you're a conservationist, man. Like you and I were talking about, right here where we're hunting is the biggest fire in Arizona history, 550,000 acres. And I remember telling you as a kid, I used to see all this country that was just the most beautiful country on the planet.
Mm-hmm.
And the first time that they let us come back up on the forest after the fire, I was with my boy, and he says, "It'll grow back, Dad." You know, he was about 11. And I said, "Not in your lifetime, son." You know,
Yeah.
and we'll never see it the way that I seen it when I was a kid. But it's growing back, and it's getting beautiful again, but it'll never be like what it was. But for the naked eye, it was probably the worst thing it could ever do. But for habitat, it's probably the best thing that could ever happen. You know, and I
Yeah.
talked to you about it because
Yep.
the animals thrived. I mean, we got the grass is knee high.
Right.
You know, and it's beautiful.
There's a lot. I'll tell you. I mean, being in my profession for the last 28 years, I understand that. And without going down a big rabbit path here, most people don't understand, you know, that fire is a natural thing and actually rejuvenates a forest. So even though we may have some emotional attachment to it from, you know, there's places where I grew up that were natural forests, and they come in there and they log it, and first thoughts are, oh, they've ruined the place. But actually, you know, that helps rejuvenate that. So
It's like I told you whenever I was just got out of high school, I used to cut timber.
yeah,
And I used to walk up to some of these big trees, and it was kind of bittersweet to cut them down. You know, and after that, because I was so much, I'm a forest lover. You know, and
you know, that's one thing that most people don't understand about sportsmen is we're the original conservationists. I mean, we are the reason why there's wildlife on this landscape. It's not. We got a dog. Can you close that window behind you there, Chris?
so anyways, you know,
Yeah.
and like, you know, and hunting, you know, I have the most respect for the animals that we have, you know, and my favorite animal is an elk, you know, and I've taken a lot of people and harvested a lot of elk in my day, you know, and
There wouldn't be an elk on this landscape without hunters.
right, you know, and I mean, I always give respect to the animal, and most hunters do, and people think that we're just bloodthirsty killers, and we're the furthest from that, you know, when, you know, like us houndsmen, you know, whether you're a lion hunter or bear hunter, you know, we try not to harvest the sows.
Yeah.
And the reason for that is because the sows are the ones that produce the new growth.
There's a couple thoughts I want to drill down on there because, you know, this is about hound hunting and preserve, protect, and promote the sport of hound hunting. So just in the last 2 days we've been hunting, when somebody says, and I'll get your reaction on this, Chris, when somebody says that hunting with hounds is an unfair advantage, what's your reaction to that after seeing that for a couple days?
So that's pretty funny you bring that up. I'm sure I've shared my opinions with you. So growing up in the South, dog hunting is a big thing down there. They hunt bear with dogs, and they hunt deer with dogs and raccoons, and so I mean, without going too deep into the wormhole with the deer part,
Tanner right in the
there
background.
it goes.
There we go.
Without going too deep about the deer, you know, I heard about this maybe 2 weeks prior to the actual hunt, and they were like, "Oh, we're gonna be running dogs," and so I didn't know what to think. And my buddies will tell you that I'm not much into dog hunting. I got a little bird dog right now. I'm training up, but so I wasn't too sure what to think about it. So I started watching videos on hunting dogs or hunting bear with dogs, and what I noticed on the bear hunting, you know, they got the bear treed, and I was watching one, and it just like you said, you know, we don't take sows with cubs, and so they got this bear, you know, treed up, and it's got his cub up there, and they're like, yeah, we're not going to take it, and I realized, you know, it gives you the opportunity to really decide and make a decision. You know, if I'm set up at a tree stand and I got a bear 250 yards away, all I see is that one big bear. I'm zeroed in on her, and I smoke her, and there's a little cub there.
Yeah.
I'm going to feel pretty bad about that. And
You
so-
know, one of the things about hound hunting is whether it's a lion in a tree, I've even done it with coons
Right.
in a tree. You know, you've got all the time in the world to decide whether or not that is an animal that needs to be harvested or taken.
Yeah, for sure. And after realizing that, I realized the advantage of actually helping a population, right? Like in Virginia, Northern Virginia, place I hunt, it's just overloaded with whitetail. I mean, your average deer per square mile is 8 in Northern Virginia. I mean, that's a lot of deer.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, hunting with dogs, it gives you that opportunity to say, hey, this is male, or hey, this is female, this is too small, this isn't a mature animal, so we're not going to take it. It gives you the opportunity to make that right call and to actually be that conservationist.
Yeah.
And touching back on, unfair advantage. Not every day that you go out just because you got a dog, or even if you dump out on a bear, that you're going to catch it. Like the first morning we dumped out on a bear, and we got in some rough country, and it was raining, and everything sounded good. And you got that sound, you hear the dogs, and you look on the GPS, and all the dogs are in line, and you're like, man, they can't wait. And you're just anticipating it for the tree, and it's still going, and it's still going. You're listening to the race, and you're all excited, and all of a sudden the dogs start splitting up, and you ain't, as a houndsman, you're not going to treat that. So it's not, people think that it's an unfair advantage, but you know what? In reality, those bears, people don't know that them bears are athletic, and they can outrun. They got more stamina than a dog, and they're just.
These bears live here 365 days a year.
Right.
I mean, they know every nook and cranny of this country. And we're bringing dogs in here from Indiana and Montana, and of course your dogs live here in Utah,
right?
And thinking we're gonna have an unfair advantage on this bear that this is his backyard, and he does this every day.
Right.
He's used to dealing with threats. He's pretty well adapted to his environment here.
I'll be honest, from my perspective too, on deer hunting, or hunting with dogs. I grew up in the South where we hunted some with dogs, and I was real young at the time, and they go put us out around a plot and run the dogs through it and scare up the deer, and we try to shoot at them. Most time everybody missed anyway, because dogs are running full, or the deer are running full blast, because the dogs are on the hills, and guys couldn't shoot for crap anyway. But I thought it was a lazy man's way to hunt, to be honest with you. And then we get out here, and then we're driving along, and I see how much work that it takes to train a dog, vet a dog, feed a dog, try to maintain this dog throughout a year for this short period of this season. And it kind of baffled me in my mind a little bit today to how someone would put so much work into trying to have a dog, that would do this for just this short period of time. And I was like, there ain't nothing easy about this. It's not an easy man's hunt, I could go sit up in, like most people hunt bears, go sit up in a tree, with a feeder underneath me, or with a bait trap, wait for him to come and put out bear cameras and figured out his time and stuff like that. That's probably way easier than going with someone who's actually got dogs, who's got to take care of them and train them. And I'll be honest with you, today the dog was in front of us. He's walking down the trail there, and he's sniffing. And I was amazed. This dog was holding his head high. He had a job, and he kind of reminded me of myself in the military. I had a freaking job, and I was seeking out a bad guy, and I was postured, and that's the way this dog was. This dog was headed down the trail. It was no BS. He was postured, and you could just see him. And I was just in awe watching this dog, do his craft. And I was just amazed. I mean, it was an amazing sight in a beautiful country. Watching this gorgeous dog walk in front of us, sniffing the air, and to be able to sniff something that's definitely foreign to us, and we can never freaking smell something.
Yeah,
like
we
that.
can't even fathom what's
Oh my.
As houndsmen, we share very unique needs when we make a decision to relocate, especially when it comes to finding a hound-friendly environment in which to live. RE/MAX Hall of Fame realtor Evan Harrell is a houndsman himself, and he and his team understand your relocation needs as no one else can. With so many things to consider before you move, Evan can help you find just the right location anywhere in the country, whenever you decide to go, and will even help with the process of selling your present home.
And Steve, RE/MAX Elite Realty is based in Franklin, North Carolina. Evan Harrell specializes in residential sales and especially in helping people like us to relocate to the locations we choose anywhere in the United States. RE/MAX has been the leader in residential transactions since 1999 and rated the #1 brand in real estate. Evan has been named top producer 4 years in a row and Chairman's Club recipient in 2018. Contact Evan online at evanharrell.com or give him a call at 828-349-4600. You and your hounds will be glad you did.
And these aren't big dogs we're talking about. These are not big animals, and you're about to put them up to a 250 bear. I mean, it's impressive the grit they have. They got gravel in their guts, man.
Yeah, I mean, all these guys are hoping to have warriors in their pack.
Yeah,
that can get the job done, and that's for me. And I hope that's maybe what you guys saw too. Is I mean, these dogs are warriors.
They are.
Yeah.
They're a tough breed, that's for sure.
Oh, yeah.
If people could be that loyal and be that tough, could you imagine how this is America, what a freaking fabulous place this would be?
Oh, my goodness.
It would definitely be a freaking...
I mean, that dog, after that first day chase, man, those dogs looked beat, but they wanted nothing more than to get back out there. They I swear to God, they kind of had that look of disappointment where they were like, sorry, Sonny, I let you down on that one, man. We'll do better next time.
Yeah, I was watching on GPS. They running through the canyon. We're kind of tracking them, and they covered a little over 10 miles before we covered them straight line distance. They went through this freaking canyon that I'd probably still down there. If I ever would have made it to the bottom, I probably would have fell to the bottom. I was still laying down there, and they come out the other side, and they're amped up and they're hyped. And I mean, the only thing to explain it is, I mean, you just don't know that emotion unless you've seen it before, and And I've seen people amped up like that before, but them dogs, they were on go.
Yeah, they live it every day.
Oh yeah, yeah. I remember. So I walked up to the ridge line with Sonny, and I was like, I wouldn't go down there.
Yeah. So Sonny, tell me some stories about some of the most rewarding things that you've seen running for Sportsmen For Heroes here.
So last year we took a vet, and he was having some hard times, and actually his buddy had nominated him onto one of our hunts and wrote me this long story and the guy's bio, and the guy went through a divorce and came home from deployment, went through a divorce, and kind of turned to alcohol, and he was at the point where he wanted to check out. Well, anyways, his buddy wrote me this story, and I read it, and I called the guy up, and at that time we were giving away a Kodiak blacktail hunt in Alaska, and one of my board members, Shane Tunnell, actually took this guy, and he got to kill a couple nice blacktails, and they were out on Kodiak Island all day, because you would get dropped off there. And I don't know if you've ever been around Kodiak brown bears or not, but I haven't. But I hear the story from the vet's point of view and Shane's. Well, anyways, over there you can harvest 2 blacktails, and he harvested one early, and the next one he harvested was kind of a pretty big one, and they were over there admiring it, and he had dropped down in a little canyon, and there was a bunch of alders, and pretty soon they heard the alders, and all of a sudden this brown bear pops out, and these guys look, and he grabs that blacktail and just takes it, and these guys are backing up, and he's like, holy crap, and he says, you want to talk about a walking Volkswagen? He says, you can have that blacktail, and they hightailed it to the beach and got out of there. Well, anyways, what's cool about this story is after it was all said and done, the guy called me up, and I was actually scouting for another hunt, and he called me up, and he said, Sonny, I want to tell you, I want to thank you for picking me on this hunt. It actually changed my life. And I said, how was it, Michael? And he told me that story about him being an alcoholic and losing his family. And he said, you know, I knew that my family cared for me. He said, but I never realized that there was people out there that don't even know me that actually care about me and care about who I am and what I did. And I'm going to make you a promise. And I said, what's that? He says, I'm going to try my hardest to quit drinking. And I told him, I says, you know, Michael, I says, that's why we started Sportsmen for Heroes, for stories like this, because we want to make sure that you know that there is people out there to care about you, and alcohol or drugs are not the answer. And to this day, him and I talk quite a bit on Facebook, and he's changed his whole life, man.
Yeah.
And he's a better version of himself. You know, and like I always tell everybody, I say, you know, I can't change everybody's life, but if I can make a difference in one person's, I'm a winner. I'm a winner, you know. Yeah. And I've had a couple stories like that, you know, and you know, there's another vet that, you know, he was probably the worst PTS case that I ever seen in my life. And him and I, we were on a turkey hunt in Tennessee, and his last name is Welch, and he came to me and he said, "Hey, Sonny, can I talk to you?" And I said, "Yeah." And there was this lake around by the lodge that we were staying. We walked around this lodge, and he says, "Will you think of me any different if I tell you something that I've never told anybody in my life?" And I said, and I looked him in the eye, and I said, "Let me tell you something, Welch." I said, "I just barely know you." I said, "But I'm going to tell you this right now. I don't just care about you, man. I love you. And I want you to know that." And he told me some of the deepest, darkest secrets that eats him up from day to day, every day of his life. And I said, "Let me tell you something." I said, "My phone is open to you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And if you ever have a bad moment, I don't care what time it is, you call me. If it's 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, I'll always answer your phone call." And there was a time that he'd call me once a week, and I'd answer it, and I'm like, "What's going on, Welch?" And he's like, "I'm having a bad day." And we would talk, and it was crazy. Like within 15 minutes of talking with somebody that actually cared about him, he was back to in 5 minutes, 10 minutes, he was back to normal.
Yeah,
you know, and that might have, you know, me talking to him that night or that day might have, you know, talked him out of doing something that, you know, wasn't the right thing to do. So that's what we do at Sportsmen for Heroes, and I'm really proud of it. And I'm the lucky one in the deal, honestly.
that's pretty cool. You know, when you serve, you're always the biggest benefactor. I think, you know, Robert and Chris can obviously understand that. I feel that too, and anytime you give yourself, you are ultimately the benefactor of what you give, you know,
right.
One way or another. And that's all. That's just amazing what you're doing there. And part of the purpose of our podcast is being able to talk to houndsmen and give them ideas of how they can get involved and make a difference and make an impact in this sport. You know, it's so easy to get wrapped up in your own dogs and in your own experience and your own hunt, but that's not going to keep us in the woods.
Right.
You know, we all love to we obviously love this sport, you know, being houndsmen and stuff like that, but this reclusive idea that I just want to enjoy my time in the woods isn't going to preserve the sport, because we're under attack. We're going to continue to be under attack from the liberal left that doesn't understand our lifestyle and want to chip away at the freedoms that people have died for, and that's so important that we give them an avenue and they understand. You know, call Sonny Tapia and get involved with Sportsmen for Heroes, and when it all comes down to it, and we're looking at it from the 30,000 foot view, and you know, what are we going to say to save hound hunting? You know, I'm part of conservation. I'm the reason. That message isn't working. You know, And obviously, we're not here taking vets hunting so that we can secure the future of our sport. That's a side product of what we're doing. But, you know, how can a legislator sit back and say you're wrong?
Right.
You know, for doing this.
It's definitely a tough deal. I mean, like Jeff said, I came back on, you know, kind of regain my love for hunting, and I started watching a lot more hunting shows and things like that. And the hunting shows that you normally see on TV, they don't have hounds. You know, I'll be honest with you. It's someone out. And a lot of the shows, to me, I can see right through them, you know. You can see the production in them and things like that. And it's probably not as real hunting as what I would love for it to see, you know. And when I see people out there in the hunting and the you know, what they're hunting and the hunt itself is not as interesting as the story. And what makes a guy good on TV, they can, you know, can produce a good hunting show is a guy who can tell a story, because that's what they're doing. They're out there telling a story. They're telling a story about the animal. They're telling the story about themselves, and they're telling the story about preserving game, you know, how important it is. Mm-hmm. And you don't see a whole lot of, you know, people hunting with dogs on these shows, to be honest with you, you know. And I don't know if people kind of deem it cruel or what, but, I mean, these dogs is held in high regard. You know, these are freaking, these are beasts in my, you know, in my opinion. And I'm looking at them, and I feel sorry. I have two house dogs, and I feel like they don't have a job after watching these dogs. You know, and I feel like I failed them as a pet owner because I haven't given them a job. You know, and I do have a close friend, and he trained dogs and he trained horses. And one time him and I was talking, and he was the first one. He said, "A dog's got to have a job." You know, he said, "You got to give that dog a job, or it's going to be into stuff. It's going to be, you know, eating up your stuff. It's going to be tearing up your friends. It's going to be doing." It says a dog's got to be busy, just like a person, and a dog needs a job, whatever that job is, you know. So it is, it's amazing.
Chris, I want to talk about, you know, what Robert said about, you know, there's not a lot of hound hunting shows on TV, and you know, I've done a lot of hunting shows with big outdoor companies, and I asked them about that. And they said that the lefties frown on that, so they kind of stayed away from it. And I think that it's time to actually put it out there and show the lefties that it's a whole different. It's not what they think, you know. In other words, and you know, you being a houndsman. And a lot of people that are on here listening, they know that it's not what a lot of these guys, these right wingers, think.
Well,
left
wingers, yeah. So, you know, to share a story from just our hunt here. So yesterday morning we're trying to, you know, we're trying to rig a bear, and we're coming down into this ravine, and we see somebody on the trail in front of us. You know, when we get up there close to him, and we realize that it's a guy that's trying to spot and stalk black bear. Season opened yesterday, and we stop, we talk to him, we ask him if, you know, make sure they're in an emergency, stuff like that, and then we're out pacing him. We get in front of him, and we head up the trail, and here this guy comes up. You know, he's coming the same direction we are. And here he is, and I could tell he was frustrated because we'd cut him off from his hunt. And so we decided to turn around and get out of there and let him enjoy his part of the hunt. The regret I have is not stopping it and having a longer conversation with that guy and explaining to him, letting him walk down that trail thinking that, you know, we were interfering with his hunt, because it's going to take every one of us to preserve the sport of hunting. Whether you're hunting with a hound, whether you're hunting over bait, whether you're hunting deer, rabbits, lions, or, you know, if you want to train a dog to hunt field mice, you ought to be able to do that in this country.
Right.
And we're going to need every person we can get, and we've said it 1,000 times on this podcast, but 5% of the population in the United States are hunters now. 5%.
That's it.
That's it. 5%.
You know, that's what's cool about, you know, Robert. His grandson's 15 years old, and it's an experience that he has never been to in his life, and I think this will make a big difference in his life.
I do too. I talked to him for a little bit today, Robert. He was he's just never experienced anything like this, and for you to bring your grandson to something like this. I remember when I was 14 and going for my first deer camp. You know, it was completely chaos. You know, but it's something that stuck in my mind. So when we start drawing these elitist attitudes, like I'm a traditional bow hunter, or I'm a spot and stalker, I'm a long range shooter, or I'm a houndsman, that's not going to cut it when it comes to preserving the sport. So when we're out there and we're houndsmen, we have to represent ourselves. We've got to step up our game and represent the group as a whole, because we can't afford to be individuals anymore. The individual's not going to be able to withstand the onslaught of the anti-hunting movement.
Like they say in the service, 2 is 1 and 1 is none. You know, we all have to be one. You know, and you know, I mean, there is bickering between the long range rifle hunters and the bow hunters and all that stuff. But in reality, we all have the same passion. We're conservationists.
Right.
Yeah.
We love this. We love, you know, and for me, it's not even about the hunting part. You know, like you, I remember the first time that you came up here, and you were like, you live in heaven.
Yeah.
You know, because everybody hears of Arizona everybody pictures.
Don't give any away secrets where we're at.
Right.
All right.
Everybody pictures Arizona as Phoenix, 118, 120 degrees. And people don't know that Arizona has the world's largest standing consecutive ponderosa pine forest in the world. Nobody knows that. And you for one, you were like, wow, this is so awesome. I would have never thought. And I'm proud, and I'm happy to share that with, you know, you guys and the guys from West Virginia. They're like, wow, man, we would have never thought that, you know. And being a hunter, you love that. And I love the smell of the mountains and just the beauty of the sun rising and all that. That's all part of the hunt. It's not going out with my weapon and you know, and harvesting. It's all part of that, man.
Yeah,
You
it's
know?
a spiritual adventure.
So I don't think people realize, though, how important hunting is to our ecosystem. You know, here in the United States and other countries, if we didn't hunt certain species, you know, and it's managed by the state, you know, and by the federal, there'd be species of animals that would be completely extinct because other animals would kill them off. You know, the dominant animals. So by balancing that species in an ecosystem, you know, it's a balance, and that's what they do, and they manage that. And people think, oh, you just go out to the woods, you know, and you kill whatever. It's not the way it is. I mean, it's way far more complex than what people realize, and how well that the game is managed, you know. Mm-hmm. And I mean, you can go online here in Arizona, you can look it up, you can see exactly how many animals was killed in each area last year. You know, you can see what to predict. There's a lot of information out there. So I get it's way more complicated and way more sophisticated, you know, than what people think. You know,
Robert,
and probably more than we even realize.
You were talking about, you know, being in Africa, and your experience over in Africa and hunting in Africa. Was it as structured?
Oh no, well, I was hunting. I was in Kenya, and I was in the military at the time. We were out. And be honest with you, we were doing these things called a med cap, and we would go out to these villages where they'd never seen a white person in their life. And we would take special forces medics and doctors, and we'd go in and we'd provide medical care. And we were in there, and we were pulling abstract teeth. They were doing just general, you know, we would take what we call vet caps in there, and we would go in and deworm their animals and provide some basic vet services for them. And they, you know, they'd have cows out there that looked like they were starving to death because they were eaten up with worms, and they'd never been wormed in their life, you know. So we'd take vets in there, and we'd line them up and start deworming their animals, you know, to regenerate them. And so when I was there, they gave us opportunity to do some hunting, and all the animals, you know, we were out in the middle of nowhere, and animals that we were harvesting, we were actually feeding the military. And I was working with the Kenyan Commandos, which is supposed to be equivalent to the Army Special Forces, you know, and they were all airborne guys and stuff. But we would go out, and most of them were Muslim. So there's a ritual when you kill an animal, harvest an animal, that they have to go through before they will eat it. And it was a great experience for me to get to go on a hunt. and not and see it from the indigenous eyes, because those were the guys that was leading us on these hunts, and they were putting us on top of the animals. And some animals that you see people standing by a big lion, it's nothing I would ever desire to try to hunt as a lion. I don't know. I just think they're the king of the world. They shouldn't be hunted. I'm a lion myself. I don't want to be hunted. I feel like I'm a walking around lion, in this society. I'm just happen to be a human lion, and I had opportunity, like I told you, to shoot a zebra, and I felt like a zebra was just a striped horse, and I guess some people would love to have that rug on their wall because they look cool, but to me it was just a striped horse, So if I harvest an animal, it was for eating.
The thing about it is, wildlife in the United States is no accident. It was all about the North American model for wildlife conservation. And there were a lot of people, a lot of visionaries in the past that knew what the value of that wildlife was on our landscape. And they worked hard, and they laid out that plan for us, back in the 1800s, 1875, 1880s, when Theodore Roosevelt started brainstorming the Boone and Crockett Club, and then, Aldo Leopold is often honored with the father of modern conservation, and they had a vision, and we see it at work right now. We are living in the golden era of wildlife conservation. Some place that Africa didn't do. You go to Europe, no place on the face of the earth can celebrate what hunters have done for wildlife like the United States can, North America.
Yes, if you watch some of, like Jim Shockey's shows, and they go overseas, and a lot of hunters have grouped together, and they donated money, and they would buy land in Africa and different places, and just to impose our rules on the game preserve to be able to grow, that game in those areas. When he starts talking about that, I was just kind of blown away that, that these people have pooled their money to buy land, and just make it a game preserve where these animals have a place to live and thrive, and be safe, and safe from poachers, from people out harvesting a freaking elephant for its tusk and leave it laying on the ground, and doing those unethical hunt, activities, hunting from helicopters, at times, and just a straight up game, trophy hunting, where to take a picture and walk off and leave the animal laying on the ground is just, it's freaking sad.
Yeah. And North American hunters don't do that. Yeah. So, well, guys, we are going on an hour and 15 minutes here. It goes right away, and we're getting a lot of abstract background interference here with our podcast.
Bears camp's getting interesting.
Oh yeah,
and we're missing the show.
Somebody gotten into moonshine.
What happens in bear camp stays in bear camp.
Hey, Chris,
Sonny?
I've taken a lot of vets on this hunt, and like Hicks. What's cool about coming out with Sportsmen For Heroes, it gives them guys inspiration to start their own. And Hicks started his own nonprofit that's kind of the same as mine. And I've got a couple guys that do that. So what I want to say is, if there's any houndsmen out there.
And Hicks is a veteran. He's an Army Ranger.
Army Ranger.
Yep.
And if there's any houndsmen out there that want to host a hunt for Sportsmen For Heroes, give me a call. And we'll set you up with the vets, and I'll do all the logistics, and that's how it all works. We're all networking, because I can't do it all myself. So other houndsmen and other people like, hey, that's pretty cool what you're doing. I want to experience it myself. And hey, I got a hog hunt, or I can take a guy on a lion hunt, or bear hunts in other states. That's how it all works. And if they're ever interested,
so tell us how. I want to go through the process of Sportsmen For Heroes. I know we want to wrap up here because we are in bear camp, and everybody wants to have a good time and experience bear camp. But so tell our listeners how a vet contact Sportsmen For Heroes. What's the process for being selected for the hunt?
So if you're a wounded vet, send us a bio of your military experience.
Do they have to be a wounded vet?
But our foundation is for wounded vets and mobility impaired kids. Mm-hmm. So send us a bio and a copy of your DE-214. And the only reason why we do the DD214 thing is because there's some posers out there, and it's sad that there is people looking for a freebie. And
you're talking about other organizations that are taking vets, taking money, and
no, I'm talking about there's people that say that they're veterans.
Okay.
And they're really not.
Yeah.
So that's
stolen valor type stuff.
Amen.
Okay.
So that's why we ask a copy of your DD214, and you can scratch out all your private information. Just give us a copy of your DD214 and write us a bio and send it to amber4heroes@outlook.com, and tell us what you're interested in as far as if you're not a hunter and you want to go on a horseback ride or whitewater rafting, because like I said, not all vets are into hunting. Mm-hmm. So we try to cater to them all in every outdoor experience possible.
Where can people find you on social media, websites, stuff like that, Sonny?
We have an Instagram page, and the Instagram page is Sportsmen For Heroes, and then Facebook, Sportsmen For Heroes, and then we have a web page. It's sportsmensforheroes.org.
Okay, great.
And we'd love to have, and the way I like to do it is I like to, people from the West, my vets from the West, I like to take them out east, and my out east vets, I like to bring them out west.
Right.
Because I want, because if you take a guy from, don't get me wrong, they'll appreciate it, but if you take a vet from Kentucky deer hunting, he's been there, done that. So I want to take the vet from Kentucky on a mountain lion hunt.
You want to take him on an epic adventure.
Right.
Okay.
And that's what we try to do. We try to, and everybody has some type of a disability. There's not a disability that we will not. If you want to go on elk hunt and you're in a wheelchair, we'll make it happen.
Awesome. That's awesome. Well, let's get some concluding thoughts. We'll just kind of go around the room here. You got anything you want to throw in, Chris, as a concluding thought? Experience?
My opinion has definitely been changed about running dogs and houndsmen. The work, like I said, I'm training a little bird dog, so the work y'all put into these dogs, and these dogs are doing it for you. They're doing it to not let you down, and it's amazing, and I definitely have found a new respect for the sport, and I love seeing those dogs work.
Hopefully we'll get some more dog work tomorrow.
Yeah.
The weather's just been killing us.
It has been. Yeah, you've definitely got bears in this country. It's just we can't control what we can't control, and when it's right, it'll be right. The thing about bear hunting, you spend hours and hours and hours looking for that box shaking strike that you get and hoping you can get turned loose on it, and about the time that you think that it's not going to happen, you go around the next bend and boom, there it is.
No, and I can't wait till these guys experience it, and I just can't wait.
Yeah, I can't either. Robert, you got any closing thoughts?
Yeah, for me, thank you, Sonny, for this opportunity, to hunt with you, to hunt animals. I think I'm pretty. I'm more probably one of the lucky veterans. I still have the means to be able to do some of this stuff on my own. But even though I am injured and I limp around, I kind of drag a leg around behind me. But I'm one of those dudes in my own mind. I'm not as good as I once was, but I think I can step up one more time, and pull some shit off and amaze myself, at the same time. And the opportunity to hunt, and like I say, I'm kind of new to getting back into the hunting world, and hunting with hounds. I appreciate you bringing your dogs out here, and all the other people. And I'll be honest, I thought everybody here was hunting for themselves a bear to start with, on day one, and I realized that everybody was out here to help. Basically, kind of 3 individuals. So we got a camp of 20 people. I think 4 different sets of dogs from different locations here for 3 of us. And I'm not worthy, but I thank you. And I feel like I have a friend for life.
Yep, you got one of me, Sergeant Major.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. And and I want to thank you, Robert. I want to thank you, Chris, and Mr. Pell. I want to thank you too.
Just call me Chris.
I called Chris and Chris. So
we didn't get into that. There's 2 more.
There's 2. We did two Chris's.
We did a podcast like that one time where there were 2 Chris's on the podcast. and Steve was trying to interview both of us, and we're both trying to answer. So
That's why I called you Mr. Powell.
Yeah.
So anyway, so thank you for coming from Indiana. Thank you for sharing your passion with us, and thank you for this podcast, and thank you for doing it for not just for us, for doing it for all the houndsmen, and actually having a passion that you want to keep this sport alive. Thank you so much. Thank you all to all the veterans out there that are fighting a war in their head every day. Call me, look us up, and just thank you for everything.
Yeah, I guess just one last thing there, caveat there. I want to tell, when a soldier returns from war, the war is not over for him. It might be over in action-wise, but it's still physically and mentally. The war's not over for him. And a lot of soldiers have some problems, with PTSD. And me personally, I think a big problem is they self-medicate. So they go to the VA. The VA's trying to help them. They're giving them the meds they feel like they should need to, help their emotions. And then they come home and they take that medicine and they add alcohol on top of it, which kind of alleviates the whole idea of working with a psychologist and trying to handle your problems, and it throws a whole new, monkey wrench into the system for that person that's trying to manage it. And I have great friends, that's self-medicating. And so if you see a veteran out there and they're struggling, listen to their story, hold out your hand, shake their hand, and that goes a long way.
Yep. Well, I will wrap it up on this podcast with telling I'm honored to be in camp with not only two great warriors, but also you, Sonny. I appreciate you inviting us out to be a part of this event and record the podcast with you and just capture this whole experience. It's been awesome, and that's again, the benefactor is me. I'm in beautiful country. I'm with great people, and I can't thank you enough. So I would really encourage any veteran that's looking for an opportunity not to self-medicate, but to medicate here in these mountains or wherever you can take them. That's the best therapy.
Right. Thank you so much, Chris.
Yep. Well, we're going to wrap this up, and even though Steve's not here, we've got a tagline that we always use at the end of every podcast. So even though we haven't experienced this week, houndsmen have all over the country. You got this track going down through the country there, and the race splits, and two different guys standing there on the mountainside. And the best advice is, Sonny, you follow your hounds, and I'll follow mine.